Welcome to Somerset Showcase. Today our guest is State Representative Justin Thurber, who represents the 5th Bristol District with Somerset, Dighton, Taunton, and Swansea. Welcome back to the show again. We had you just after you were elected, and I think it would be a really good thing if you checked in with us every once in a while on a regular basis. So thanks for coming back.
I definitely appreciate the opportunity. I definitely appreciate the invite. And early on it was good, and I think now is a good time. I definitely want to be at these events more, let people know what I'm doing. I do have my Facebook page where I do kind of like weekend reviews of what I've been up to because I want people to know what I'm doing. Yeah, and it's tough. Like you have to strike the balance of getting information out for people, but also, like I think local media is important, and I'd like to be here. The schedule at the State House isn't always conducive to that, so I appreciate us being able to find the time to do it, so thank you for having me.
So you've been there almost about 9.5 months.
10 months,
or so.
yeah.
So tell me what you've been doing both up at the State House and down in the district, because I know you have to balance those two, right?
It's definitely a big balance. One of the things that you have to learn how the State House works. So my aide Kevin and I are up there and we're learning like the ins and outs, the bill filing procedures. We were put on committees. I was able to get on 4 of the 5 committees I wanted. I was able to get on public health. I'm the ranking minority of veterans. I'm on small business. I'm on intergovernmental affairs, and I'm on climate action. A lot of people look at some of those and like, well, why would a Republican want to be on climate action? And I'm like, well, because that affects my community with Brayton Point, the wind energy stuff. I want to have a say in it. The other reason is a lot of people are being affected by the cost of utilities. It's one of the biggest things that when we got into office, we were getting phone calls and mail and email from people saying like how unaffordable things is. You're getting screenshots of people's bills, electric bills or fuel bills, and they're telling you their story, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to hear people are struggling. So to be able to give that opposing voice, and it's not like in a bad opposing voice. I think a lot of people think you're going to go up there and tell these people who want the green energy at the State House like you're horrible, you're wrecking things. That's not going to get you anywhere. So we've built relationships with the people on that committee to say, listen, I understand where we're going to make a transition towards a green energy future. The problem is in your efforts to go there, you're hurting people. And we have to maybe take a step back. We maybe have to look at what we're doing and course correct. I mean, I think one of the problems that I tell people at the State House, while we do a lot of great things on our committees, we hear from experts, we hear from people in the community about certain bills and certain topics, and what we try doing is we try crafting a bill that encompasses the fixes that we think are the best fixes. The problem is sometimes when those bills get passed and now everyone's following this law, there's these unintended consequences, and the state is slow sometimes to move on those. So now what happens is if the state's slow, it could be 2, 4, 6 years before those problems get recognized. And I think what's happening in this green energy push, we're really at a point now where we have to maybe make a pause or actually sit there and not finger point and blame Eversource or blame the governor, when in fact it's the state legislature that's the problem. It really is. People forget that energy companies are regulated. Yeah. Who regulates them? Who makes the laws? We do. Yeah. I think it's easy for us as legislators, and a lot of people do, to say, well, it's these evil gas companies, these evil electric companies, it's the governor. I tell people, blame us. And if you give me a second, I got a perfect analogy that I love, and I wanted to get this on a bigger thing, but you'll hear it here, and hopefully you hear it more in the future. We have a lot of organizations and businesses come in to promote their ideas. And Kevin and I try to get up to the State House a lot to listen to these things, the opposing views, but also to express our concerns and see if they have any answers for our concerns. And this year we had a lot of people in the solar industry want to sit here and tell you how solar is the future. So I used to give them this analogy. I said, tomorrow if we had a magic wand and we could put out solar panels on every house and every business in Massachusetts, we would still have electric bills. And they sit there and they're like, you're right, it's not a base load power supply. When it's raining, when it's snowing, when it's nighttime, solar isn't a base load. It just can't do it all the time. I said, so here's the problem. People that could afford to get solar panels got them, paid for them, leased them, or whatever. Like myself, I had in Swansea, with the Swansea I bought them, the house I bought in Somerset has them. I haven't paid an electric bill in 10 years. So I haven't paid the electric company. I haven't paid them for the power lines, the people that work there, the upkeep of their power plants. I've paid nothing into that. I've paid no bills. I go, and I'm just one person. There is thousands upon thousands of people
I've talked to a lot of people.
yeah, that aren't paying into this. So who is paying it? Those line workers still need to get paid. The lines still need to be maintained. The power plants still need to run. I still need to get electricity when my solar panels aren't producing. So what's happening is, as we're taking more and more people off by incentivizing it through increased cost in their electric bills, through tax incentives, so your taxes are going up, we're incentivizing these people to get off this while the costs are going crazy. And so now the people who can at least afford to pay these bills are stuck bearing the brunt of it. Because if you're renting an apartment complex and the guy doesn't have solar panels on it and your electric bill's coming in, you're subsidizing me. And the problem is there's a big push towards just more and more. And my point is, how about we stop and say, we're hurting people. Like, we have to listen to people. And that's one thing Kevin and I, this past year, have realized. It's unsustainable. That's the key word everyone says. It's unsustainable. The taxes, the insurance, the utilities. And I don't think anyone at the State House, any of my colleagues, want to do harm. I think what they really want to do is they want to solve problems. I think some of the ways we solve problems actually make more issues. And the good thing for me is I've had a lot of good discussions with a lot of my colleagues at the State House. I believe I'm a voice of reason. I have people tell me up at the State House, no one up here talks like you. And I'm like, well, that's good, but it's also a problem. And what I hope to do long term is get people to realize that we can have this outcome that's desired, but we have to do it in a certain way. And I think people are starting to realize that, oh yeah, maybe we are the problem. So hopefully we can make change. But there's a lot. Like I said, I know as you said, it's been, I don't know, 8 months since I've probably been here, 7 months. We've been on those committees. We go to hearings. We submitted bills. We're definitely involved in the district. We're trying to get, to Swansea, to Somerset, to Dayton, to Taunton, get into businesses to say like, hey, listen, we want to put an emphasis on you. So we try to go to ribbon cuttings. I wasn't a big fan of ribbon cuttings before I became an elected official, I'll be honest. I just thought they were more like, politicians trying to make themselves look better. But what I tried doing is I tried promoting the businesses that way. I thought,
bring some attention to
bring some attention. I thought I'd be able to do that, but when I got up to the State House, they said, no, you can't do like a small business spotlight. That's kind of against the rules at the State House, because you have to, in their mind, you have to treat everyone evenly, and they don't want to make it seem like you have favoritism. So what we're trying to do now is I'm working with the EDCs, I'm working with the towns to, if a business has like an anniversary or a special event or ribbon cutting, get to those things and put a little spotlight on the small businesses, because they're the lifeblood. I tell it to everybody, they're the lifeblood of our communities. They're the ones here that are supporting the the softball leagues, the baseball leagues, that's supporting the concert, the Winterfest, all these other events they're supporting. So if we could just bring attention to them and have people like, oh yeah, I do pass that store. They are a big supporter of the people in this town. I'm going to remember to go there. I think that's part of my job. Part of my job is to do that. So there's a lot of things we're trying to tackle. I wish I had more Kevins, because if I had more Kevin, who my aide is, I think we could get a lot more accomplished. But every day we're working towards hopefully solving problems locally.
Now, a few minutes ago you were talking about utilities, and we have a couple of issues in Somerset as far as utilities goes.
Yes.
There's a battery storage proposal for the former Montauk Electric site.
Yes.
And then, of course, we're looking at a proposed 37% increase for Liberty Gas.
Yes.
So how do you...
So we'll take with the Liberty Gas first. We were on a video call with them a couple months ago, and I don't understand why they did this. Again, legislatively, by law, they're allowed to raise rates so much every year, or they can hold it, but then after like so much time, they actually have to charge you that rate. So in their bright idea, and I couldn't understand this, is they were like, we decided for like 10 years to not like have these increases, but now we have to legally we have to pass these on to the customers. And I told the guy, I said, well, while I appreciate that you didn't do it incrementally, I go, that makes no sense, because now all people see is the 37% hit they're getting hit. So again, I think it's one of those things is we make laws as a legislator thinking it's working out, and then when it gets into the real world, like Liberty Utilities is like, what's the best way to operate in this? And you make decisions. And I think what happened is they probably thought like, hey, we'll hold increases, these type of increases for a certain number of years, and then maybe COVID happened and people were in trouble, and then they're like, well, we can't do it now, and it's just a bad situation. So, like I said, with the Liberty Utilities things, I think we need to have a reset, like a pause and a reset. And the same thing with the battery energy story. I've talked to Mark Lucci a little bit about this. He seems confident that in the area it's safer. He's read a lot of things. They're doing have a lot of technology, doing a lot of things. My consideration is the cost. I think it's be a benefit to Somerset, and if it's a benefit to Somerset and we can raise some money, generate some tax revenue, great. I don't think it's going to be this big savior that everyone thinks it is. I forget what the statistic was. I think it was if we spent $65 billion on battery storage, in current dollars in current technology, that it could keep the lights on in Massachusetts for 4 hours tops. Is 65 billion worth that? And this is the other thing about being on that climate action committee that I'm on, is I think this is the way I think we should do it, is we should have some sort of standards. We should say, listen, an electric vehicle, before we subsidize any electric vehicle, it has to have a 500-mile range, and it has to be able to charge from 0% to 85% in so many minutes. That makes it that people would buy. I think that they wouldn't have range anxiety and they'd feel better about it. But no, what we do is we're like, everyone should buy into this technology. It's not ready for prime time, and just spend all this money. I don't think battery technology is there yet. I do think there is some technology like sodium-based batteries and some other technology that's coming out that in the next 5 or 10 years will be a better, cheaper, safer option. I just think like maybe we should wait. And I know a lot of people don't want to wait. I know a lot of people want to have wins. They want to make things like we did this and we did that. And again, I understand the town would be like, hey, listen, we have to wait another 5 years to generate more revenue. But you have to balance that with the safety of the residents, the cost feasibility, because yeah, we're getting taxes, but you know what? Because the expense of this technology and it's so expensive, you're also going to pay more on your taxes. So you're not really getting ahead. And some of those future technologies are like 10 times cheaper, and they've already been proven, and they just have to get them spooled up, get them to production level. So it's good to be on these committees. It's good to be able to listen to this technology. I just wish sometimes we could let's slow down. Let's not waste resources. Let's not waste taxpayers' dollars. Let's think about this and come up with, like I said, benchmarks. This is a benchmark we want for this. Like electric vehicles, I think a lot of people would be like, well, you're a Republican, Justin, so you're probably not for taxing electric vehicles. And I was telling this to my Democratic colleague yesterday at the State House, and I was like, actually, I am for taxing electric vehicles. And he looks at me, he's like, what? I'm like, yeah. I go, they're double the weight of an ICE engine, internal combustion engine, so they do double the damage on the road, and they pay no gas tax. So we've incentivized with people's tax money for these vehicles to be driven on a road to make the roads deteriorate quicker, and we have no way to generate revenue from those to help repair these roads. So it only makes sense to say, hey, listen, we're going to have to get some sort of thing. You're going to have to play some sort of role. But again, it's one of those things is we just want something, so we say, hey, we're going to support this, we're going to fund this, we're going to do this, and then we're too slow to react at the negative outcomes. And again, he was funny. He's like, no way an electric vehicle is more than another one. It's just a battery. So you do a little Google search or whatever. And I said, that's all it takes is 2 seconds to do a Google search. Yeah, it is. And we have to be reasonable, right? We can't keep putting the burden. Again, we're putting the burden on people who can least afford it. Not a lot of people can go out and buy a $40,000, $50,000, $70,000 car. And a lot of people that are doing it so they don't have to pay for gas. So we're losing revenue, and people who can't afford it have to pay more in taxes. They have to pay more in just everything, fees to support these policies that we make at the State House. And again, I think a lot of people up there really well intentioned. We just need to have people like myself that go up there and say, listen, understand what you're doing, great, but you have to understand you're hurting people. How can we balance this out? And that takes time, and that's a frustrating thing at the State House. Like, it's a good problem, it's a bad problem. Like, people ask, what don't you like about it? And I said, well, it takes a long time to get things done. When you're in the military for years, it's a problem, solve it. You have a mission, you have to complete it. Up at the State House, things could take years. That's good though, right? Sometimes that's good. I know a lot of people like, no, it's not good. I go, yeah, we make mistakes. So sometimes taking years helps us try ironing out all those mistakes. But sometimes I think we have to act a little quicker. I am really scared. I don't know if scared is the right word, but maybe scared for people this winter. Yeah. Right? When they start getting their bills, and we got it last year. Kevin and I are working on some things. We'll introduce those in the next couple of months to, hopefully help people in at least in this district with money savings to help navigate this time. But, these little stopgap things that they're going to want to do at the State House, like, we're going to do this bill to save you taxes on this, to, like, no. What we need to do is stop these little bills to help people out in the interim. We need to fix the problem. And here's the problem that I see, is if you can't be honest, and if you can't identify what the real problem is, you're never going to solve the problem. And I think a lot of people understand that, have ever met me, I talk honestly, I try being as honest as possible. I don't have all the answers, but I figure if I talk honest and someone's like, well, did you ever consider this? Oh, no. That's something else I can take into account when we make these decisions. But we have to be honest of what's really going on. And we have a lot of politicians just pointing the fingers and it's this person. We're not going to solve these problems.
Talking about revenue, one of the things we talked about in the beginning when you first started was your bill to bring money to the town through the regional greenhouse gas initiative. Yep. Can you give me an update on where that is in the legislative process?
Yeah, so really quick, so the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative is basically like a carbon tax credit that a bunch of New England states have entered into, and what happens is electric or utility companies have to pay Massachusetts for how much carbon they produce to actually sell gas or electricity, to the residents of Massachusetts. I think we're at least 1.2 billion, if not even higher, that Massachusetts, since this program has started, has generated from that. The problem with that is who pays for that? The ratepayer does. We have to pay for that. The utilities company isn't paying that. Years ago, when my predecessor, Rep. Haddad was in office, I think there was some sort of misunderstanding. As the power plant was being torn down, those Reggie funds actually will pay money to help offset the tax revenue that was being lost. The problem was once a power plant is decommissioned and it's finally offline, they don't give any more money. So at that time, they were basically like, you're not getting any more money. I don't think that's right. I don't think that, when there's billions of dollars that the state is collecting in revenue, and they put it towards mass save, they put it towards electric vehicle rebates, that's what they use a lot of this money for. So I was thinking, there's a couple of towns and cities in Massachusetts have had coal-fired plants being shut down in this push for green energy. And my thinking behind this bill was to say that fund that has that billions of dollars that's accumulated for a certain period of years, help towns offset the losses in this push for green energy. Because it makes no sense to me that you understand when a power plant's closing that a town needs help, but once the power plant's closed, they don't need help? I'm like, these are power plants. It's not like, oh, we tore this power plant down and now that whole land doesn't need any remediation and you can immediately put new businesses. No, there's going to be permitting, remediation, what we're going through now with Brayton Point. So my thinking behind the bill that I submitted is there should be at least a 5 or 10 year money from the Reggie to go to these towns affected by it, because we get hurt multiple ways. We don't get the revenue from the power plant, and we're paying more for utilities. So we're carrying a bigger brunt than other people are, all for this push for green energy. I was proud to, at one of the committee hearings, I went up, the video, it's on my Facebook. I think I posted it on my Facebook. If not, I'll post it again. I'll give it to you if you want, where I went up and I spoke about it. And then what happens is the committee takes that under advisement. And again, I'm seeing it from one way. They have to sit there and say, hey, listen, if we do this for the towns, is there back pay? Is it just future pay? How many years should it be? Like, there's all this other stuff they have to think about. So it's in committee. Will it get out of committee and pass? I don't know. I would say no right now. And the only reason I'd say no is because what you find out at the State House, there has to be a lot of push for it. Right, there has to be a lot of people behind it for them to move on. Some things make sense. So what I've done is at the State House, I've reached out to other reps whose communities have also been affected, and they signed on board with it. But now what we need to do is we really need to get those communities to stand up, to send emails, to send mail, to call other legislators and say, hey, listen, this is something that we care about. We're supposed to be a commonwealth. We're supposed to treat people equally. We're supposed to do things equally. And you've put an undue burden on our community in this push for a green energy future. And we need to correct this mistake or this oversight. And it is an oversight to me. Like I said, it just boggles my mind that they're smart enough to understand when you're decommissioning a power plant, they're going to give you money, but once it goes offline, they don't give you any more. I don't understand that. So I think what we all knew going in is it was going to be a good first step to shine a light on it. And then, if I'm lucky enough to get reelected, that's part of the thing, is you just keep pushing these three things through. Not every bill that's submitted ever gets voted on. A lot don't. And then the ones that do, you have a rep there that constantly pushes it, builds consensus, builds with other reps and communities or whatever to put pressure on the State House, because that's what you need. You need to put pressure on them to actually move on stuff. So that's the next piece. That's what we'll be doing next.
Are you finding any problems with trying to push these things through because you're part of the minority party? Or?
So I would say this. I think as freshman legislators, I don't think a lot of freshman legislators are listened to, but I don't think a lot of legislators up there have a lot of things that are pushed through. Even if you're in the majority party, even if you're in leadership roles, one thing I do like is there was like 4,500 bills submitted in the first 3-week period. Most of those are never going to go anywhere. So like I said, the process is long. The process is a good process, and they have to work through things. I think it's the whole greasy wheel. The more they hear about it, the more there's people talking about things, the more pressure at the State House. I think the more people are willing, or the people, elected officials, are willing to actually move on something. I think being in that Climate Action Committee, though, one of our things is we don't actually hear bills in that committee, but what we do is we propose guidance of what the state should do. So in those discussions with the people on that committee, we've had some good discussions. And again, they sit there and they're like, oh my gosh, dude, like, because I bring up things that they don't think about. And now that you've thought about this, now you know, like, some of our policies are not having good effects. How do we change that? So it does take time, right? When you're at the State House and you're in leadership and there's all these bills, like, you have to prioritize things, and we just have to make sure it's a priority.
Continuing along on the revenue subject.
Yes.
There's concern about a possible $650 million deficit for the state budget, and that filtering down to the towns. I've heard concern about it at selectmen and school committee meetings. Yeah. Can you tell me what's going on with that?
I would say, so again, this is one of those things we talked about earlier, a lot of finger pointing. When you're up at the State House, you hear a lot about the federal government's the problem. I don't always ascribe to that. Yes, the federal government is changing some things in how they paid Medicare, for other programs that are going on in the state and in the local communities. So there are going to be cutbacks. I do think it's a priority thing at the State House. I think what we're trying to do is figure out what the cutbacks are, and what in Massachusetts do we need to adjust accordingly. So last Wednesday, we're at the State House. It's probably my best day ever being at the State House voting, because we actually got to vote for line item things. And what happened is, usually most budgets or most things we vote on, it's not just one thing you're voting on, it's a package of things. Like we have all these amendments, or we have this omnibus bill that everything's in it. So I can't go there and say, well, I don't like this, this, and this, I'm not voting for that. It's all or nothing. So what we were able to do is the governor vetoed a bunch of the budget that she didn't like. So what we were doing is we were overriding the vetoes, or not overriding the vetoes. So I think I've explained this last time, the Republican Leadership Office at the State House makes sure we're informed as possible. Our colleagues don't have the information that we have. I would say they don't have any information sometimes besides what they're told. And we have these papers and this information in front of us that has like the bill number, what the House budget was, what the Senate budget was, what the governor had in the original budget, the reason why she vetoed it, what our take is, well, what we think that bill really means or what it can do. And then based on all that information, I can sit there and for each line item that we voted on, say, yes, I want to override hers, which I did on a couple, because listen, I think technical education should be funded. And for some reason she thought like, well, maybe we don't have to do this or whatever. And I didn't agree with it. So I said, no, that money should go for, technical voc tech education. But then there's other things that I voted against the override, and I wanted to stick with what the governor said, because we have some things that happened during the pandemic, and like the pandemic isn't going on, so we shouldn't keep funding these things. I am not in the room with a lot of people that make these decisions on what we're spending. Some of the things I don't agree with. I've had a lot of discussions with my colleagues at the State House. And I think what happens is at the State House, we believe the more we spend, the more problems we solve. I don't always think that's true. I think one of the things I've had some discussions is usually in the beginning of a new budget session, like after January, what we'll start doing is a lot of people will reach out because, for the next year's budget, they're going to want funding again. Oh, we need funding. We need funding. Well, what do you do if you need funding and want to keep your job? You have to show you're doing something, or you have to show growth. And I think what happens is, to not our benefit, we have a lot of these organizations that every year just come back to us and like, we need more money. And as representatives, we sit there and like, well, we think you're doing good things and we're just going to give you the more money. I'm under a little bit of a different mindset now. I want to sit there and say, well, are you offering the value, or are you expanding out of what you initially were supposed to do to show growth so we can keep funding you? And that's the discussions I have with some of my colleagues up there. They're like, I've thought about that before, because every year you hear these people come back and like, oh, we're doing this, but we need more money. And I go, but what did we solve? Have things gotten better? I go, I think a lot of these organizations feel like if they solve problems, they make themselves irrelevant. And you make yourself irrelevant, you work yourself out of a job. So I'll give you a perfect example. We had a mentorship day at the State House. And they're like, hey, Justin, these people are from your district, talk to them. So I met the lady who runs the program in our district, and I asked her, I said, is part of your mission statement to make yourself irrelevant? And she smiled because she knew what I was getting at. I think mentorship, and I believe anyone I ask you think mentorship's important for kids that need mentorship. I think everyone would agree. But I would also say that the goal of those programs is for the kids that come into it, say, while we like having you here and while we like this mentorship things, it would be better that when you have kids that you don't repeat these mistakes and you make sure that they don't need mentorship. That should be part of it. I don't know we're doing that. I think these things just think of themselves as to grow, to be bigger, to take on more things. And I don't think that's an appropriate way to run government. I don't think we're being good fiduciaries. I don't think there's a lot of mechanisms in our budget to actually look to see if the problems that we have tried to solve have been solved. Behavioral health, I think, is the big thing that did it for me. I don't know how many meetings, Kevin, did we have with behavioral health people. And they always didn't start out as behavioral health, but I think now it's a big catch-all, and we have all these behavioral health groups, companies, organizations that we're funding to solve behavioral health. And now they're telling me 1 in 2 people in Massachusetts have behavioral health problems. I'm like, are we solving things? I don't think that was like 5 or 10 years ago. But I think we expand definitions, if we expand definitions and we expand services, and these people get more money. So I think what we really need to do is, and I think they're trying to do at the State House, go through some of these things and actually maybe make some cuts and not just spend it. So I hope with our discussions up there, I hope with my discussions with people out and about when I'm talking to people, I'm hoping that other reps, based on my discussions, talk to other people and people's mindset change. Like, yeah, government is meant to help and solve problems, but we can't keep doing it when people are hurting. So how do we balance that?
At a recent selectmen's meeting in Somerset, Alan Smith, who was the chair
Yes.
of the board, said that he thinks that the towns should get at least a 2.5% increase in state aid for schools, rather than the 1% that they got last year. How do you feel about that?
So I agree. I was watching a video the other day, in Massachusetts, state aid back, from the state back to local communities is one of the lowest in the nation, and it has gone down over the years. What that just shows me is our focus is on solving different problems. So what's happening is towns, and more so towns, not cities, are shouldering the burden of the state sitting there and saying what's more important is green energy, what more important is the shelter system. And what's happening is, by them diverting funds to those things, the towns are starting to hurt. Also, Chapter 70, when I was running, it was funny, I think I told you this story. I was out there saying the Chapter 70 funding formula is broken. I think the reason why I was saying it is because a lot of people were saying, oh, we fixed Chapter 70 funding for schools. It's fixed. We did it in 2019. But the Mass Teachers Association, the school systems here were like, we're not getting enough money. So both those things can't be right. Both those things can't be correct. I know that the legislator now understands that the formula is broken. They leaned more heavily towards funding cities, which I understand, right? Like, listen, we want to make sure everyone's getting a good quality education. The numbers in Massachusetts are abysmal. And, again, it's one of those things I think that the State House doesn't realize they do. I tell everyone, I think we propagandize ourselves up there, maybe because I go in with fresh eyes. I see it differently. But if you sit there and you constantly tell people we're the best state in the union for education, and we were looking at the numbers earlier today, and only 60% of graduates can't read and write at grade level now, that's not good. I don't care if you're number one. To me, that's not acceptable. Things need to be fixed. But I think what happens is the fixes throw more money at things. I was watching a video the other day on a story, because we need to have the tough discussion. And Mississippi actually has changed it around with education. I think people used to make fun of Mississippi, but now Mississippi has actually better reading, writing, and math rates than Massachusetts does. And they spent a little more money, but what they did is they got serious and they did the things that were necessary. So one of the things that I liked about it is you can't get past 3rd grade if you can't read, write, and do math at that level. They do not let you. They hold you back. And they put a lot of resources into it. I think we have to get serious about it. But one of my big things is I'm big for education. I think education, actually I know education is the foundation which helps people be successful later in life. And it bothers me that we graduate, think about that, we graduate kids in this state that can't read, write, or do math. That's not something we should be patting ourselves on the back with. I would not, if I worked in a school system, a superintendent, a principal, that would be unacceptable to me. I understand there's issues and stuff, but we have to think different. We have to be creative, and it's not always money. We spend more money now on our education than we ever have, and the results are getting worse. And I don't put it on teachers. I put some of it on the legislator. Like, we want all these kids to learn things. We pass laws or bills that DESE has to take, Department of Elementary Secondary Education, that they now have to institute And what's happening is they institute those, and now the towns have to follow these things, and the education's changing, and it's all over the place. I think we just need to, again, pause, get back to basics, figure out what works. It just blows my mind. You and I, Brian, I think you all learned how to read and write, and we did it before computers, and there was a process. And now we have all this technology, we have the internet, we have ease of access to all these materials and stuff to help people out, and we're getting worse at it. So I think what has to happen is we just have to pause and say, listen, something's not right. How do we fix it? So I would think too, like, we have to fix Chapter 70 to make sure the funding for towns is equitable instead of just funneling it all to the big cities. And we also have to sit there and make sure that the money that we're spending is having the desired effect. And I think it's funny, no one was on this watching before, but we were talking about AI. And I've talked to a lot of superintendents, and a lot of them agree with me that I think costs are getting so prohibitive in people's real estate tax bill that I think in the future that if we don't do something, and my wife's a teacher, and I want her to keep her job, and I want every teacher to keep their job, is I think if we just keep throwing money at it and people can't afford to pay their real estate tax and everything gets too unsustainable, we're going to be clamoring for something. And I think AI is what's going to swoop in, and I think a lot of superintendents agree with me, because we were at a presentation in Fall River, and they were showing like, hey, if you pay $2,500 per first grader, we have this program where they can go on a laptop. They have a tutor there, a live human tutor that teaches them in 15 minutes a day, and they learn to read. And I'm sitting there looking at these people, I go, you guys understand what you're doing. You're self-eliminating yourself. And they couldn't see. I said, because what we're telling people is in 15 minutes a day, we can teach kids how to read. When you as a teacher in all your day can't do it. And now these kids have sat in front of a computer and learned to read. So when they're a little bit older and they say it's become so unaffordable to pay what we're paying in taxes and we need relief, an AI company is going to come along, and you probably see it now, like we're talking about videos and stuff. You can have an AI that looks like the person, you know, because everyone wants to, hey, I want the teacher to look like me or speak like me. It'll be able to have an avatar that does that. It'll be able to do differentiated instruction, which is a key term that they use to say, hey, listen, this kid learns at this rate, this other one learns at this other rate, and it'll be able to adjust accordingly. And if a child can learn reading in 15 minutes in Fall River by having a one-on-one tutor that couldn't do it in an hour, right now what you say is, now what we'll do is when your child's done and makes benchmarks, we'll let them go learn the arts, we'll let them go here, we'll let them go that. So you won't need a teacher to pay, you'll just need a room with computers and someone to make sure that the kids are on task and doing what they're supposed to do. And a lot of the superintendents like, you know what, I see that coming, because there's a bill right now that I don't think it's going to go anywhere, that MTA wants to start the average salary in Massachusetts of a teacher at $75,000. I understand that. You want teachers to make a good living wage. Tell that to a superintendent, they're like, I'll quit. You're going to raise everyone's pay up $20,000. People are hurting now. That's like not even a realm of possibilities. So I think what has to happen is we have to be honest, we have to be realistic, and we have to get ahead of these things now before they get too late. So I'm glad I'm in this position, because having these discussions, most people aren't talking about.
I know the Somerset schools have a committee that's looking at AIs.
Yeah.
It's definitely.
And that's the thing is, once it's in the door, right? Once the camel's nose is under the tent, right? Now it's just everything's gonna push towards it, and as people get used to it, and again, I think most people, like you and I would agree, I would believe, that we want our kids to be in front of human beings. They're there, they can, be that personal touch, and we understand the value of that. I think what overrides that, though, is if people are like, hey, listen, I can save 30% on my real estate tax bill, I can save 40% on my real estate tax bill, and my kid's still going to get a good education. That might push it. That might push us to a place we don't do it. So what I'm trying to do is get ahead of this with people and say, listen, I want teachers to teach. I want teachers to be in classroom. I understand the value. My wife, as with a lot of other teachers during COVID, teaching online and stuff like that, that personal connection is missed. That's why I said I think what happens is if it was AI and to differentiate instruction and the kid could leave and go do something else, that's how they mitigate that concern with parents. But I really think what has to happen is we have to kind of be forward thinking. We have to look at a lot of these problems that are coming down the road. And I ask kids who are graduating high school, I'm in the high schools, talking to kids and teachers, principals, superintendents. And my biggest question to kids are, what are you doing in college? What's your degree in? Because I want to see, are they anticipating how AI is going to change it? And I ask them, I go, are you afraid that AI is going to take your job? If you're a graphic designer, I wouldn't want to pay $180,000 to be a graphic designer. I don't think there's a long-term, there will be people that do it, but there's not going to be as many people.
The selectmen recently submitted a home rule petition to the legislature in order to be able, for the town to be able to put an ordinance in place that would allow it to stop adding fluoride to its water supply. Can you tell me where that is in the legislature right now?
Yeah, sure. It was actually a couple of weeks ago. Senator Rodericks got the paper and got it up to the House before we did. Kevin and I were asking for it for a couple of months. I guess what had happened is the town lawyer, didn't like some of the language. So he was asking the petitioner if they wanted to change it because he thought it might go through smoother at the House. So after a couple of months of them going back and forth, it finally went up. I think what's going to happen now is, I know what's going to happen now is it has to go through to make sure it's legal, has to go through all their checks and balances. We actually just had another home rule petition for a liquor license that's been going on for a couple of years, and it was just voted on last night. The selectmen voted to approve it, but some of the language the House didn't like, and they wanted to make some changes, and there was substantive changes. I wouldn't have called them substantive changes, but for legalese it was. So last night the selectmen voted to accept those changes, and now it'll go back up and it'll go through all the committees. It'll then go to the House and Senate to be voted on, which is basically a formality because the town wants it, the town voted for it. So right now it's just time. Is it unfortunate? They just want to, like I said, make sure the law is good. It doesn't have these unintended consequences, that we can do it, that it isn't impeding on any other laws or stuff like that. So I think what's going to happen is as it works its way through the House, if there are issues, they'll bring it to my attention or to Senator Roderick's attention. We'll bring it back down here. Fixes will be made, re-voted on, brought back up to the House, and once everything looks good, it'll be voted on, and then it'll be passed. And then it depends, like some of the language is it immediately has to happen. I think one of the things they might do is, like, on passage of this bill, it'll give them a certain time frame for the water department to make sure it can take it out and do what it needs to be done. So I had someone call about this the other day. I would, if I was to hazard a guess, which I don't like to do, I would say 4 to 6 months maybe. I know a lot of people want to go quicker, but it's coming. It's going to get done.
How do you feel about that issue about not adding fluoride to the public drinking water supply?
So like a lot of people, when you first hear about it, I think a lot of people sit there and like, well, I've had it my whole life. It does this and does that. And then when you do some research on it, do a little more research, because am I wrong? Is this person wrong? Or if they corner me again on this issue, like I want to be able to speak for it. There are some concerns. I think a lot of people have concerns, some don't. I also think now with like the fluoride toothpaste and the other ways that you can get fluoride on your teeth and stuff, I think that's actually probably a good way that you can get it if you want it. Some people do say, and I kind of agree with this, like we're medicating people against their will. And I know there are some people in this town that actually have, and I didn't understand this before, like they can't drink the water because there's fluoride in there because they have certain conditions that it affects it. So they have to spend a lot of money on filtration systems and things like that. So long term, I think people should have a choice, right? I think that's part of the government's job, is to protect your freedom, let you have a choice to make decisions. I think this is kind of reasonable. Like I said, instead of medicating everybody, if it's incumbent upon you to say, hey, listen, I'm going to get some mouthwash that has fluoride in it, I'm going to brush my teeth more, maybe I'll go to the dentist more, but that's incumbent upon you, instead of saying, hey, listen, because some people can't, don't, or whatever, we're just going to do it to everybody. So, and again, I do hear the other side too, and I want to always take into all sides, is like the people that, I don't know in this community as much, but other communities that don't have access to a lot of money or resources, and maybe struggle to get dental care, tooth care. Well, that's That's something different. Then maybe what we should do is say, do we take the fluoride out, and the town voted on it, and then if there are people that are going to struggle to get the fluoride that they think they need or want for their teeth, all right, let's figure out how to solve that. Let's figure out how to get that to. That's the way I think it should work. I think it's kind of how it is working. It's government though, right? Like the people of Somerset voted on it. That's democracy. A lot of the things that, it's funny, like a lot of things that we bring up to the State House on these home rule petitions, it's my job to bring it up. Whether I agree with it, whether I don't agree with it, and I willfully bring that up, and I gladly bring that up, because that is democracy. We come here, we vote on it, and then they say, take this up there, and that's our will, and I'm like, perfect, that's how it's supposed to work. So whether I'm for it or against it, whatever the people vote, that's what we're going with.
I saw you on social media recently speaking about vaccines.
Yes.
Do you think it's a similar type of issue?
Yeah. It's funny. I think I tell people, if 6 years ago you talked about that, a lot of people would probably look at you differently and like, what the hell are you talking about, right? To be frank. But I think what's happening is with the COVID and all this other stuff and people looking at stuff, I think people have some concerns. And I have another great analogy for this is what government is supposed to do, in my opinion, is we're supposed to first and foremost protect people's freedoms. So when you sit there and say, hey, listen, we're just going to force everyone to get these shots or whatever, and actually it's funny you brought this up, just this past Wednesday, we voted on one of these omnibus bills that I voted against, and there's language in there that says the Department of Health can pick and choose which vaccines it wants people to get, it can mandate you get them, and if you have a serious reaction or die from it, you can't sue anybody. I'm like, well, listen, where there's risk, there should be choice. So I think a lot of people are there. So here's my analogy I want to get to. Is a couple years ago, I looked into this. A couple years ago, the latest statistics, 52 people in Massachusetts died from drowning. Do you know what Massachusetts didn't do? They didn't ban beaches. They didn't ban pools. They didn't ban lakes. You know what they did? They said, listen, we're here to protect your freedom. We're here to allow you to live your life as best as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to pay for lifeguards. We're going to go to lakes and we're going to say, these are the areas that's best to swim in. Please swim in these areas. We're going to give you boater training. We're going to tell you, hey, listen, we suggest or make laws that say, hey, listen, put gates around your pools or do this for safety. That's the government's job. The government's job isn't to sit there and do the easy thing. The easy thing is that 52 people died. How about this? You can't go to the beach, you can't have a pool, and you can't do this. Because one of the things they always say, well, if we save one life, well, what about 52 lives? So I think it's one of those things is we want to do easy things, right? Like the gun debate. I don't want to bring the gun debate, but the gun debate is their easy solution is just ban guns. Well, that's in the Constitution. You can't do that, right? Like, but what can we do within our powers to protect people? And they're hard. And people want quick and easy wins, but quick and easy wins means you're taking rights away from people. And my thing is this, if you want to run for office and you want to be a voice and you want to do the government the way it's supposed to do it, put in the work. Don't do it because it's easy. Put in the work. So let me give you one other thing, is the religious exemptions. One of the big things, there's a bill up against religious exemptions for students, right? Only 16,000 kids in Massachusetts request a religious exemption. There's about 8 million people in Massachusetts. And what they want to do is they want to take away the right, which is in Title VII in the federal laws, that gives them the right to say, hey, listen, I don't believe this, I don't want to do it. It's my right to not have to take these shots. What they want to do is like, well, you don't have that right anymore because public health trumps your rights. I don't believe that. 16,000 kids aren't going to harm people. And I'll explain it to you this way. I recently had a relative who had to get their titers checked. Now the titers is where they draw blood and they say, hey, what's your immunity to certain things? And they were like, yeah, you have no immunity to Hep B or chickenpox, the varicella, and you need to get these shots. So the person got the shots. But here's the problem that people don't think about. Immunity wanes in a lot of these shots. So while we're sitting here as a state looking to take away people's constitutional rights because we're going to save people, they're not even taking into account the 40 or 50% of residents who probably aren't immune to that. So like we need to vaccinate 16,000 people against their will to protect everybody, but we don't know the vaccination status of 40 or 50% of the people. And it gets even worse, because if Massachusetts does that, okay, Massachusetts does that. Well, people come from Rhode Island to visit, people come from Connecticut, people come from all over the world. Are we going to do vaccine passports? Are we going to, like, you have to prove you got all these shots? I don't want to live in that world. What I want to live in a world is we sit there at the State House and we tell people all the time that we have the best medical in all the world. We have the best doctors, best medicine, best universities for medicine. I think what we can do is we can look at some of these things and say, listen, let's say there was some sort of outbreak. And an outbreak seems bad, right? But an outbreak can be 3 or 4 people. That's like the definition. I think it's like 4 people that have it in a certain area is considered an outbreak. I think most reasonable people are like, well, that's not really an outbreak, but they use that terminology. But what you do is you say, listen, if there is, let's say I had a kid that wanted to use a religious exemption. All right, what happens? The school knows about it. Hey, there's an outbreak. This kid doesn't have it. We've identified them. You have to stay home for 2 weeks. I think that's a reasonable accommodation. We're protecting you. We're protecting the society. You made your decision, and we're trying to protect your decision, but we're also trying to protect other people. It's not the easy thing, but it's what we're supposed to do. So it's funny, I spoke at Faces of Vaccine Injury at the State House a couple weeks ago, and as I tell people, and it's unfortunate you have to tell people I'm not anti-vax, because that's the first thing they want to do, and I would put my vaccine schedule against anyone else. I was in the military for 29 years. I got almost every shot known to man. So I also understand something else a lot of people don't understand is based on our ages, we got a different number of shots than kids these days are. And that's the other thing I want to let people know is they said when I went, I got like 8 shots before I went to the military, right? But now my wife, that's all she ever got. She hasn't got another shot since she's been a teenager. But people like my wife who did the same thing, who are our age, who never got other shots, maybe because they don't have medical care, maybe because they don't like shots, maybe because they don't know, they didn't get these vaccines or whatever, they're going around being afraid of people because your kid needs to get all these shots because you can't get people sick. Well, they're up to 72 plus shots now. Are you going to make up your 64 different shots? These are the discussions that we have to have. And these are the discussions that at the State House right now, what they'll do is the science is settled, you're an anti-vaxxer, because they don't want to have these discussions. I want to have the discussions. I want to do the hard work. And I would love to talk. I talked to everybody. It was funny. There was a gentleman, I was on WSAR. He called up and measles was going around. And he's like, what do you think about measles? I go, no, I think it should be a personal choice. And he's like, really? I go, let me ask you a question. I go, it just sounds like this. I'm not trying to be mean or anything. You sound like an older gentleman. He's like, yeah. I go, did you have measles? He's like, yeah. I go, you're protected. But that's the things we forget. We forget, like, if I got a shot, I'm protected. If you got measles, you're protected. But now you have people scared that, listen, there's a measles outbreak because 4 people have it some other place. And now I want everyone, because I'm in fear, to have to do something that they don't want to do. So if you'll ever see anything with me, like, I want to have discussions, I want to bring things out, I want to have people to talk about things, and if people disagree, that's fine, but let's have the discussion. I want the discussion. In the Faces of Vaccine Injury I was at, is a lot of people get vaccine injured, and there's a couple problems in the medical field. Being on public health, you see there's a lot of problems in the medical health field, but one of the problems is doctors not diagnosing either vaccine injuries or just people's diseases that they have. Endometriosis. I've never seen so many people come in and like, 14 years fought with a doctor, told them I had endometriosis, and they said it's all in your head, and they would never treat me. So there's a bill proposed that, hey, listen, if people think they have it, there's certain tests you can do, because so many doctors believe a certain way and people need help and they're just not listening. So if you can do that with certain diseases like endometriosis, why can't you do it with the shot? Why can't you say, hey, listen, like, this person got a shot and then they have these symptoms which are a side effect, and you go to a doctor like, I think I've been vaccine injured, and like, no, you're not, you're crazy, and then you're trying to get help and people are like, well, you're an anti-vaxxer. That's not right. Like, people need to get help. And now they're afraid to, because they're afraid to come out and say things because what people are going to think about them. They're not getting help in the hospitals. And that's horrendous. We just, there was a story, I think in the Fall River Reporter, just a couple of weeks ago, that this woman in Massachusetts was taking antibiotics and it put her in hospice. Thank God she lived, but she went to her doctor and like, listen, I think these antibiotics, which I think a lot of people, if you think of an antibiotic, would be like, oh, those really can't harm you. I mean, you may have a little bit of a side effect, they move you to a different one. She was gaslit by doctors and hospitals. You're crazy. Well, she just changed it, fighting the CDC, fighting the hospitals and doctors. So now they have ICD-10 codes. So now if someone has it and they have a reaction, doctors actually be like, wait, there's something here. Like, we can actually do something. Like, this happens. So I think that's what we need to do. We need to stop telling people that they're crazy or they're out of their mind and listen to people. Like, everyone's different. You know that. Every prescription thing you see on the TV, right? Not everyone's going to get all those symptoms, but some people are. What might work for me doesn't work for you. But what we have to do is we have to be honest about it and have those discussions. So I don't sit there and say, hey, listen, we should ban vaccines. No. I'm not sitting there saying no one should get them. I'm not sitting there saying like you shouldn't be able to get what you want. What I am saying is if there's risk, there should be choice. And if people don't want to do something, like how do we protect everybody? How do we protect their freedoms and how do we protect their health and how do we protect the community? So I think there's definitely things we could do. I think we have the technology now. I think medicine's changed immensely since a lot of these shots came out, and I think now it's just easier to get this shot instead of saying, hey, listen, if you don't, something happens, we can fix it really quick. So and I look forward to that discussion, and I hope, like I said, I hope people who are usually against me in this will at least have a discussion. Like, let's have a good discussion, and I am willing to learn, and I hope they're willing to learn. So.
A couple months ago, there was a discussion at a school committee meeting in Somerset about legislation up at the State House that would ban use of cell phones in schools. Yeah. and this has already been done in other states.
Yes.
How do you feel about that legislation?
Okay, so personally, I obviously would like cell phones banned. We grew up without them. I think, the studies show that kids actually do better without the cell phones as a distraction in class. I do have issues with it being at a state house level. In my opinion, what this bill should have been a simple, school committees are allowed to determine if the kids have cell phones or not, and that's it. It goes back to what I said is there's a lot of things that we do at the state house that have these unintended consequences, and my partner Senator Dooner and I were talking about this, and let's say there is a town, and she actually had a town that isn't for how the bill's currently constructed, and they'd be like, yeah, that won't work for us, so if we don't follow it to the T, will we lose money? So that question was asked, and like, yeah, we'll withhold funds. I don't think that should happen. What I think is what we have to get back to is as much problems as we can solve as close to home as possible, we solve them there. And I say it like this too, is maybe, let's just hypothetically say that Somerset, like, we don't have a problem with cell phones. Actually, we've learned to use them in a certain way and it's really good for us and we have this program and the parents are on board with it. We should allow that town to have the ability to say, listen, we elect a school committee to reflect the values of the people that elected us, and we're going to make decisions based on it. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all. I think every town should be allowed. So I don't like the bill. I don't like the bill for that reason. Now, I agree that, hey, something may have to be done, but that's just me personally. Other people don't agree. There's a lot of parents, like, what if there's an emergency at the school? What if there's this? I want to be able to get in contact with my kid. I need to do this. There's a lot of people, a lot of different things. But if you're a person like me who hey, we need to let people decide what they want, I think we have the perfect process in place. We vote for school committees. We get the engagement of the town. When something comes up like this, if the school committee is like, hey, we're going to have a discussion on banning cell phones. Well, you know what should happen? We should get the engagement of the peoples who lives in the town and have their voices heard, and then the school committee makes a decision based on that. That's to me the best way. The more problems that we can solve closer to home, the better it is. Because like I said, when you get to the state house, those laws are tough to change. They take years. There's issues. I'd much rather we just give the freedom back and not have it be like every problem that we have has to be solved by the State House. That's another problem I have. A lot of people really want the State House to solve all their problems. I'm like, no, you don't, because that's when it's really bad on some of these things, because it's the state. The state can fine you, the state can put you in prison. Like, the state can do a lot of things that I don't think a lot of people want to deal when they don't have to deal with those laws. So if it's a town thing and you don't like it, you know what you do? You go to your town meetings, you go to your school committee meetings, you rally up a bunch of people, you get a bunch of support, and you can do it locally. You don't have to get a couple hundred. You don't have to do it statewide where you have to get hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people on your side to fight it. So it's really a mindset change. I think things changed years ago. I don't know why, but it's a mindset change. That, again, another thing I'm trying to do is get people to understand, like, listen, give these things back. Give these things back to the closest point to fixing the problem, not the furthest point away.
If people have issues that they want to contact you about, how do they do that?
Yep, so I have my email address, which is justin.thurber@mahouse.gov. We also, at the town hall, I apologize, we're not there too often. Being on these committees that we're on, being in the district, trying to, advocate for this district all over the place to figure out, like, things that we can do. And stay tuned, a lot of things are coming up. Like, we're out and about a lot. We can be reached on our door at the town hall in Somerset. Our email addresses, our phone numbers are there. They can contact us. If you see us out and about, I don't think we have a problem anymore. When we first started, there was a little issue with phone numbers and stuff we were having, and trying to make sure they were the right ones and who paid a bill and stuff. But those have been pretty much resolved. I have people from all across the state that contact Kevin and I, and we help everybody out. So we don't ever say no to anybody. But our main focus is on people in the district. I have my Facebook page, Justin Thurber, state representative. You can go there, see what I'm doing, reach out to me there. I have my website, justinthurber.com. I've had people, email me from that website, on Facebook, on email. They call the phone number at town hall and reach out to me. Actually, another thing I'd say is a lot of people that know me in town. I have a lot of people call me up because they reach out to people and say, hey, listen, how do I get in touch with Justin or whatever? And I try making myself available as much as possible. And like I said, I think maybe we could do some things better, but I think on a whole, from what we're hearing, where most people who want to get in touch with us and have issues, and there is a lot of issues. We have unemployment issues, housing issues that we deal with, sometimes RMV issues. So we get a lot of emails. Kevin's great. He helps me out a lot with that stuff, and we really are diligent in making sure we're trying to correct those problems as quickly as possible. We even help with licenses, right? We help with licenses. And a lot of licenses have been taking a while in the state to get them, processed. So, we try doing that. We are trying to, and that's like professional business licenses. But at the same point in time, we had a gentleman in town who is an American citizen and went for a real ID, and he's having struggles. So we're helping him with that. So, we'll help as much as we can. And even if it's not in the realm of us helping, and we try seeing as much as we can do. We don't try passing people off. So I think most people know how to get in touch with us, and reach out anytime, and I appreciate this.
Yeah, I have run into Kevin at Town Hall or at Keep Somerset Beautiful to clean up.
Yeah, I was there.
I see him.
And I hope you see me around. Like, I'm hoping a lot of people, like, man, you're really visible, and we're trying to be in the community more, trying to be at community events, definitely want to be visible. I told people when I ran, I said I want to be a representative that I would like to have as a representative. And I think that's, communicating with everybody, being there for everybody, and just, being present and doing the best I can for the district.
Okay. We'll touch base with you.
All right, perfect. That'll be awesome. Let's do this some more. I'll have to bring some slides in. We'll put them on the screen.
Thank you for tuning in to Somerset Showcase. We have been talking with State Representative Justin Thurber. We will see you next time.